it's not sure how to explain what it is. How do you explain something to human children that humans in general don't have any words for?
Yeah, it's like a kind of a ghost, but not really.
He's all colors, Sam. Welcome, everybody, to Unraveling the Unexplained. I am Kat, longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant. This is my brother John, longtime fan of the creepy and paranormal.
Good evening, folks.
He has picked out a video for me to take a look at and react to. I don't know what it is, but we are about to find out together.
In 1973, two children on the Isle of Wight had a rather unique encounter with a strange clown or scarecrow-like entity. A narrative of the case was later published in the Journal of the British UFO Research Association, or BUFORA, which remains the only source on the episode. On a Tuesday afternoon in the first half of May 1973, two children were out playing near a village south of Sandown, on the British Isle of Wight. One was a 7-year-old girl known to the public as Faye. The other was an unidentified boy of a similar age. The pair heard an odd wailing noise that was similar to an ambulance siren. They followed the sound, cutting through a golf course to reach a swampy meadow by the small Sandown airport. The siren noise had stopped at some point after their arrival, but as the children crossed a wooden footbridge, they saw an odd humanoid figure emerge from under it, wading in the creek water.
Oh no.
The figure fumbled with a book it was holding, dropped it in the creek, then splashed around trying to pick it up again. Next, they watched as the figure hopped away, pulling its knees high into the air with every jump. It hopped its way over to a 2-story windowless metal hut.
Listen. If there's about to be red balloons and floating boats and stuff.
Had the first thought of that myself. This was 73, and I don't know when it came out. I think
like the original book?
Yeah.
I have no idea either. But listen, run, don't go to the balloons, children.
Those gotta be some seriously curious kids if they decide to investigate a weird siren sound, then see that pop out from under a bridge and don't go running away.
I mean, maybe it was non-threatening.
I mean, it's hopping in a non-threatening manner.
Hut, similar to those used on construction sites. The children walked on and got just over 50 yards, or 46 meters, from the hut, when they saw the figure standing outside again.
Oh, hell no.
This time it was holding what looked to be a black microphone connected to a white cord. The children described the entity as standing almost 7 feet tall. It was proportioned like a human, but with no neck. Its eyes were simple triangles, and its nose was a brown square. It had paper-white skin with a circle on either cheek, and yellow lips that never moved. On top of its head was a pointed yellow hat with a bit of red hair drooping down onto its forehead. A round black knob topped the hat, and what looked to be wooden antennae stuck out from either side. The hat connected directly to the red collar of a long-sleeved green tunic over white pants. The entity's hands had only 3 fingers, and its feet 3 toes. The hands were covered in blue gloves, while its feet were bare and white. Some type of wooden slat stuck out from its sleeves and the legs of its pants, and its clothes had many rips in them. Suddenly the children could hear the alarm sound again, but louder. This scared the boy, who started to run. But just as he took off, the alarm stopped, and a friendly-sounding voice asked, "Hello, are you still there?" The children noted that the voice sounded as though it was coming from someone standing very close to them, and not necessarily from the figure or the hut. Reassured by the friendly tone, the children approached again. The figure introduced itself by writing onto a notebook, "Hello, and I am all colors Sam." They read aloud as Sam pointed to each word at a time. She said that Sam wrote in large hand, likely indicating capital letters. She also noted that the words were arranged out of order. The children walked closer and heard a voice again.
Oh no.
Sam's lips remained still, and its words were poorly enunciated. Sam asked some questions of the children, which prompted them to ask it questions back. They asked why its shirt and pants were ripped, to which Sam responded that it had no other clothes. The children asked Sam if it was a man, to which it answered no, with a chuckle. They then asked Sam if it was a ghost, and it replied, "Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way." The pair then asked it what it was, if not a man or ghost, to which Sam simply responded, "You know." Sam went on to tell them that it had no name, despite the earlier introduction. It also informed the kids that others like itself existed, and even drew a rough sketch of what another one of its kind looked like. Lastly, Sam claimed to be afraid of humans, fearing harm. While the children were speaking to Sam, they could see 2 workers working on an electrical pole nearby. These men paid no attention to the scene before them, as if they couldn't even see it.
I wouldn't be surprised.
After this exchange, Sam invited the children into the metallic hut that it had claimed it had just finished building.
No.
The pair entered by crawling through a flap, finding themselves in a room with some basic wooden furniture, an electric heater, and a high ceiling. The walls were covered in what looked to be a blue-green wallpaper, which itself was covered in a pattern of dials, but it's unclear if these dials were merely a design on the wallpaper or real mechanical fixtures. The children claim that there was also a small upper-level room with a metallic floor, but it's unclear if they went up there. Sam took off its hat after entering the hut, and the children could now see its round, white ears and sparse brown hair. The children spoke to Sam inside the hut for 30 minutes or longer. During this time, Sam told them that it eats berries that it gathers in the late afternoon, and claimed to drink purified river water. It also mentioned a camp it visited on the mainland. In addition, Sam showed the kids something that Faye described as a conjuring trick. Sam put a berry in its ear, then thrust its head forward until the berry reappeared at one of its eyes. With a few more thrusts, the berry disappeared again, then reappeared at its mouth. The pair eventually said goodbye to Sam, then left the hut to walk back home. While passing through the golf course, they told a man that they'd seen a ghost, or someone dressed as one. It was 3 weeks later on June 2nd, when Faye told her father, known only as Mr. Y, about the strange events. He was hesitant at first to take the story seriously, but he eventually followed up with the boy, who confirmed his daughter's account of events. Mr. Y visited the location of the encounter, but there was no trace of the metal hut, or any sign of Sam. Though he hadn't told Faye, Mr. Y had some anomalous experiences of his own in the preceding 2.5 years. Around 7 p.m. on October 20th, 1970, Mr. Y was driving to see a friend in the town of Ryde on the northeast coast of the Isle of Wight. As he was headed eastward, he spotted a very large lit object in the sky to his right. Mr. Y stopped his car to watch the object as it hovered over swampland connected to the Yar River, drifting around apparently aimlessly. It was quite low to the ground, and completely silent. Mr. Y described the object as having 7 or more large spherical lights arranged in a wide ring around its circumference, each like a bright red cherry. Mr. Y resumed driving, at which point the UFO followed parallel until he left the town he was passing through. The craft then moved perpendicular to his direction of travel, until it was positioned directly to his rear, roughly 300 yards behind. Mr. Y stopped again, then took out a flashlight to try to signal to the craft. Mr. Y signaled to the craft for 10 minutes, while it weaved backwards and forwards, as Oliver put it.
That's pretty brave.
Yeah.
Mr. Y drove on, and the red lights remained visible
Also
even
kinda
after he
slow.
arrived at his friend's house. When Mr. Y's friend had joined him outside, the two watched as the craft darted in and out from behind the different trees. Mr. Y then drove on to the town of Ryde, when he lost sight of it. For at least several months afterwards, Mr. Y claimed that he spotted several other singular flying balls of red light that hovered in place or followed him. On the 1st of March, 1972, Mr. Y had another unusual experience while out at Compton Bay on the southwestern coast of the island. Between 9 and 10 p.m., an unanticipated tidal surge forced Mr. Y up onto a cliffside, where he was stranded until the tide receded. He then noticed 2 yellow lights just under the surface of the water, roughly 40 feet or 12 meters from his location, peering up at him like the eyes of some horrible sea monster. Mr. Y had never shared a word of his unusual experiences with Faye before her own experience with Sam. However, he believed that her experiences were related to his own, and he felt the need to tell someone about them. Mr. Y eventually shared his and his daughter's experiences with Leonard Cramp, Vice President of the British UFO Research Association's Council. Cramp suggested Mr. Y contact Norman Oliver, editor of the Bufora Journal. Mr. Y provided Oliver with a detailed account of all related events, and Oliver condensed the narrative for the January 1978 issue of the journal. Although Sam stated that it was not a man, it is mostly referred to with male pronouns in the original publication. It's possible that Sam's voice, name, or size led Faye to conclude that it was a male. The case has received limited attention, perhaps due to its strange and boundary-defying nature. The encounter is mentioned in the 1991 book Modern Mysteries of Britain by Janet and Colin Board, and has received some coverage online. Debunkers have largely ignored it, likely due to the scarcity of evidence.
Yeah, I've certainly never heard of this before.
Yeah, it's kind of a new one.
And it's an old account, so there's not a lot of evidence
You can't
there.
necessarily have nobody's got a smartphone back then to bust out pictures.
No, and I suppose it would be easy enough for like small children came across somebody who was a vagrant who was acting strangely to misconstrue situations, or for the person in question to start acting strangely just to entertain children. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's
certainly a
always, yeah,
possibility.
that's always possible.
Although some of the specifics of the account feel like they'd be a little off for that unless the kids themselves were really making things up, but those also seem like odd details to make up.
The part that really strikes me, there's a couple of parts that really strike me about it. The first is the unwillingness to identify as a gender or anything like that. Like I'm not a ghost, but I'm not a person. You
Yeah.
know, not really knowing how to explain to a child what they actually are. It's interesting the like inability to communicate clearly, words not quite written. Like there seems to be a little bit of a language barrier. Although he was sifting around, whatever, was sifting around in the river for a book and eating berries and wearing ripped clothes.
It almost feels like something kind of trying to work out human behavior.
Yeah, like some sort of
Like
colonist.
like,
Like some sort of,
like the whole thing with the ear and shaking its head and the berry appears at the eyes and then the mouth. It's almost like I don't actually know what eating is, but hey kids, does this look like eating to you? You kind of move your head around and you kind of put the material around your face.
I don't know. I don't know if it was just trying to be entertaining for the kids because it's not a fully physical format. It can do weird things. And so if it was just trying to be, you know, it doesn't surprise me that it has an easier time interacting with children than it does with adults. You know, anybody else, any adult seeing that would have ran for the damn hills. What the hell?
Heck, most kids I know and remember would not stick around very much with that.
Yeah, it's certainly weird. But again, like, it didn't seem to be unfriendly or anything, just mostly doesn't like dealing with adult humans. And I can
Yeah.
absolutely understand why. Any adult would probably have lost their damn mind over that.
Yeah.
Especially clowns are creepy anyway. Why you look like a clown? You couldn't have picked something. You should have picked something better.
Well, I mean, maybe it was under the impression that clowns are supposed to be a friendly thing.
Maybe.
It's supposed to help it integrate.
That is odd. Let's listen to some more of it. I'm not sure how the incidences with the father are related. Do you know what I mean? Unless somebody was just checking up on their scout team, their away team. It's almost like it was an away team or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it could indicate that just there's general activity in that area.
Let's find out some more.
With no corroborating witnesses and no supporting physical evidence, it's impossible to know the truth of the narrative contained in the Bufora article. However, Faye's story served her no purpose, and yet she was insistent on its truth, even weeks after it supposedly happened. Her father said that the level of detail that she conveyed, and her persistent commitment to the truth of the narrative, convinced him that she was being honest. Neither Faye nor Mr. Y have ever spoken publicly about their experiences again, and so no more has been learned of the strange entity at Sandown. The case is highly unique in many ways, but as with most anomalous experiences, there are similar ones on record. For example, when anomalous John Keel was doing research for his book, The Mothman Prophecies, he heard a story from Leonard Elmore of Duncan Falls, Ohio. In October 1966, the 72-year-old Leonard was out for an early morning walk when he saw an unfamiliar L-shaped building in the middle of the field. Leonard got close enough to discover that it looked like a galvanized iron shed, though it had no windows or doors. Suddenly he heard a male voice come from the shed, saying, "Don't run, don't run." Leonard immediately walked home to retrieve his rifle, then returned to the location, only to find the shed now gone. The fact that the electrical workers didn't appear to see the interaction is reminiscent of another case from Riverside County, California in 1955. According to a report from the Center for UFO Studies, on August 22nd, a group of 8 or 9 boys were playing in a family garden when they saw several strange UFOs appear. But when a parent came out to look, the UFOs would disappear. And at least once that afternoon, one of the parents saw nothing, even when the objects were still visible to the kids. The kids also saw unusual-looking entities that spoke to one of them and hypnotized another. The Sandown case contains elements of what astronomer J. Allen Hynek dubbed high strangeness, which is a way of describing cases with a large number of elements that can't be explained by conventional science. Sam itself was highly strange. Many have debated what it meant by all colors Sam, especially considering that it later claimed to have no name. All colors might have been meant to invoke the visible spectrum. Perhaps it meant that it somehow exhibits the full range of visible colors, or every wavelength on the electromagnetic spectrum. All colors may have also been a reference to the chromatic scale in music. The term chromatic comes from the Greek word for color, meaning the scale encompasses all colors. The fact that the children were lured away by sound invokes the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Interestingly, the word pied is used to refer to something with two or more colors. Commentators on the case have variously referred to Sam as an alien, a clown, a ghost, a robot, or a cryptid. Ufologists such as Jacques Vallée and John Keel have argued that the appearance of anomalous entities in UFOs is cobbled together from existing cultural images. The children may have been subconsciously projecting these cultural images onto whatever they were seeing. Or perhaps, the entity itself was engaged in a crude imitation of a human, either through costume or some more technical process. In particular, Sam's appearance seems to have been a mashup between a clown and a scarecrow. One type of clown popular in vaudeville and minstrel shows in the 19th century was known as the tramp, and was always dressed in torn, dirty clothes. And the scarecrow character in The Wizard of Oz, probably the most famous depiction of a scarecrow in Western culture, had tears in his clothes as well. He also had straw protruding from his sleeves and pant legs, just as Sam had wooden slats protruding from the same places. Mr. Y commented in the Bufora article that he felt that the kids were taken into a bubble of alien reality that Sam had created, hence why the electrical workers didn't see anything. Many witnesses to UFOs, cryptids, and other anomalous entities often report decisive changes in their perception before encounters. For example, many people report that the world around them goes completely silent, or that the air itself feels different. Others report time distortion, memory disruption, or unusual sounds or odors. English anomalist Jenny Randalls coined the term Oz factor in 1987 to describe the altered sense of reality surrounding many anomalous experiences, while Jacques Vallée has referred to this phenomenon as reality transformation. The case of the Sandown ghost clown, as it is often known, remains an anomaly even within the field of anomalistics. More so than any other encounter, the Sandown ghost clown is a reminder to approach each and every case as its own unique experience, and to resist being overly rigid in our categorization. The case, and others like it, also suggest that whatever phenomenon is behind these interactions is reaching us in some alternate reality, or perhaps inside of our own minds.
We will link this video and the channel in the description. Please check out the original creators. They appreciate it, and so do we. Yeah, this is interesting. And it's also interesting to me how people assume that there's some sort of a, like you've stepped into a different reality bubble, or there's some sort of reality manipulation happening. But what it sounds to me, honestly, is like a shift in consciousness. So if you get into a deep state, like a hypnotic state,
Yeah.
you are basically, you're pulling your consciousness back a step from this physical reality. So I'm not surprised that, you know, you're not hearing the same sounds, you're not having the same sensations, things seem different. The tone or the sound that they heard.
The siren.
Yeah. That's not uncommon either when there's something else around or something else cluing you in or reaching out. Is there'll be like a tone or a pitch. A lot of people will call it, like, what is that called when the ringing in your ears? Like, is it called tinnitus? I can't remember.
Tinnitus?
Tonight, yeah, I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, there'll be like a loud, like, ringing in your ears all of a sudden. When there's something else in the vicinity, it'll come through like a sound like that, which can signal a shift in consciousness as well.
And that is what they heard first before they ran into Sam.
Right. The other cases it was mentioning as well, where people, like, sometimes children see things that adults don't. Like, we were talking about that in the last episode, as well as children are a lot more open-minded and a lot less panicky. Even when adults do see things, they're like, don't run.
Yeah.
Right? Because humans have an initial fear response and we've talked about that before, that's difficult to manage sometimes, which is why you get hypnotic states or things where they're just trying to keep people calm.
Right.
For interacting purposes. This is a strange case. You don't usually get that degree of interaction or communication happening.
Yeah, to the point where it's even trying different methods, because it tried like a verbal method first, and then it tried writing things down,
Yeah.
You know, like it was trying different ways to communicate.
Yeah, it was like it was still working out communication and how to communicate clearly. It's not sure how to explain what it is. How do you explain something to human children that humans in general don't have any words for?
Yeah, it's like a kind of a ghost, but not really. You
He's
know,
all colors, Sam. So it's like trying to say I'm a multi-dimensional light being. Yeah, like I'm not. I'm not a man, and I'm not a ghost.
at
Like
least not in the typical sense you're talking about.
no, I'm not a human soul that's passed on or whatever from physical reality. This is a personality construct that actually came from another system.
Now, please, children, come into my shed and let's talk.
I mean, yeah, it's odd, but I mean, if the directive was to make contact and communicate and learn, children are at least not screaming and running, or
At least not much. They kind of were at first.
we didn't close the door. Well, yeah, anybody, I think, again, choosing a clown is not a great, I think it was actually more, there. I think they're right, it was actually more intended to be a scarecrow. I think that's actually probably more for their benefit. Like, think if a scary human with a shotgun does notice you,
You just pause for
just
a
hold
second.
still. And it's a weird scarecrow and it's scary, but it's not moving, so.
Just look at me as a scarecrow. I'm not doing anything.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that the imagery may more have been convenient for their purposes.
The tattered clothes and stuff, maybe it was meant to be kind of a disguise. Like at a distance, he looks like a vagrant, so people won't bother him while he's shuffling around, experimenting around, figuring out stuff. Because I figure if you're an interdimensional entity in, checking out this world, you're going to be checking out things other than just the humans. You're going to be looking at all the little animals and creatures crawling around. You're going to be looking at the plants and the water and all this other stuff that isn't a typical part of your fifth dimensional reality or whatever it is you're a part of. There's a lot more to be interested in on this planet than just us humans crawling around. You'd be studying everything here. So maybe that's what Sam was kind of doing with his little hut, studying, figuring things out, splashing around in the water. Maybe the book he was fumbling with wasn't even something like, he's trying to figure out what reading is,
Well, that's what I mean. It's probably one of the best ways to gather intel and learn is to figure out how to read and read books and, It's definitely an odd case. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
usually encounters are brief and they come off a lot of the time, the way encounters are described, they come off a lot more like some superior species floated down from the sky and hypnotized us.
Kind of ethereal beings or weird giant-headed, gray aliens.
Yeah.
This was a very much more weird yet kind of down-to-earth encounter with just some dude who kind of is dressed like a weird clown and is just trying to, I'm saying, I'm trying to figure shit out.
Yeah.
You want to talk, kids?
Yeah, it's, kids, I guess, don't know the right questions to ask. Why are your clothes ripped? Wouldn't have been my first question to ask an interdimensional being. But I guess you can't be too mad at it. It sounds to me like the adults they come across run to go get their shotguns. So,
I mean... Guys like, what's this shed doing in the middle of my field? Better go get my rifle.
Right. So... And he did mention, like, I'm afraid of the adults, I don't want to interact with the grown-up humans. Are not fun to play with.
Hard to blame him for that.
Right, for sure. Trying to keep a low profile, dressed like a clown in the middle of a field. I don't know.
He's trying.
Well, if most people can't see you anyway, the ones who do spot you, you either pose as a vagrant, a scarecrow, or
just hope that your scary clown siren sends them running.
Yeah, I guess. I have no idea. That's definitely an odd one, though.
It certainly is, and apparently in an area where there is activity, because the father was encountering UFOs.
Yeah, the saucers in the sky people see a lot, and so it could be, like I said, could have been the guy who was a part of this Sam, whatever, was part of an away team, and his buddies were nearby keeping an eye on things.
It's like Sam's down there dressed like a clown, messing with the humans.
I guess. The eyes in the water that's not the first time I've heard that, not in this same story, but I've heard different encounters that go over like eyes reflected in the waters looking up at you, and that's an interesting phenomenon too.
Yeah, I mean, it could be completely unrelated, but who knows? That's its own thing.
It gives the impression of like keeping an eye on things, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I see you.
I know if I saw creepy glowing eyes staring at me out of the water, I would definitely remember it and not want to see it again, to be honest.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, it's like, what kind of an approach are they supposed to take, really? What could they say that would not provoke that kind of a...
I suppose when you get down to it, no matter how you imagine the idea of alien and or extra dimensional beings contacting us, there's almost no way for them to do it in a way that isn't going to cause some sort of stir or uproar.
And fear and panic in people. Yeah, exactly. So I get,
Like, there's no methodology you could use that people would be, oh, okay, oh, we're completely cool with this. No, there'd be some unrest and issue.
I think that we expect too much, that any kind of an either extraterrestrial or interdimensional personality out there would have similar culture, language, behaviors to us. I mean, I think that's too much to expect. I don't think they're going to politely land on the White House lawn and unfurl the red carpet and walk out and be like, citizens of Earth, we are whatever. That's us expecting other beings to behave like us.
I guess if they did do anything like that, it would be more or less the result of them having studied us long enough to know that that's the expectation.
Well, human propriety says that, if you're going to show up, announce yourself properly and don't sneak around in the woods like a creepy clown thing. That's scary. But I think it's a lot to expect that something that's not from around here is going to know how to behave and interact with us in a way that doesn't freak us out, not without learning about us.
They got their own completely separate rules than, they're just trying to figure out what to do around us.
Yeah, and considering the fact that the vast majority of us can't see or interact with them at all, I mean...
Oh, yeah, I guess it makes sense. I mean, think about it. If you've got a safari group going around Africa in a big old van, what do the local animals even think of the van or the weird things in the van that certainly aren't coming out to say hi or communicate in any way the animals understand? They just see a weird thing passing by.
Yeah, everything is perception, right?
Yeah.
So... it doesn't seem like he meant any harm. He was definitely not getting his Stephen King on. There was no red balloons. So he seems like an okay clown to me.
Just an awkward clown, not an evil clown.
He was just socially awkward. Give the guy a break. I think we can all relate
to Sam just a little
bit. And that's what I got on this one.
All right,
it's a good one, though. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
So interesting. Let us know what you think. Drop us a comment. Like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And we will see you next time on Unraveling the Unexplained.
Have a good evening.